name is Brian Howard. I'm a Calgary realtor who has sold an average of a house a week since moving to this great city in 2003. And this is Calgary Living. I'm interviewing Calgary's top performers as it relates to living and lifestyle in our great city. Some of the podcasts will be real estate decision specific, but most will be about life in Calgary and why we choose to live here, or at least why you should visit. Thanks for tuning in. On today's podcast, I had the great pleasure of interviewing my longtime friend, all-around inspirational, cool, analytical, and creative fellow, Greg Kolodziejzyk. I've known Greg for, quite a long time. What I find really interesting about Greg is, as a young man, he graduated from State College with an engineering diploma, worked for a short time in the oil and gas business as a technical engineer, and realized it wasn't his fit. He jumped ship and ended up starting a graphic design company and quickly became interested in computers, the Mac computer, what it was doing at the time, and eventually sold that business in the sort of early mid 90s to what became Adobe. Greg was kind of a pioneer in digital art, and Calgary has a long history of being in that field and doing quite well in it. As opposed to choosing to go right back to work, he focused his energy really since about the mid-90s on projects that he was interested in and passionate about. About that time, he was already a bulky weightlifter, and then his interest became more about endurance, starting out with Ironman triathlon. As trying to become a faster and faster cyclist, he thought a lot about aerodynamics, which led him down the road into how fast he could actually go on a human-powered vehicle, or a bicycle, really. He ended up breaking the world record, traveling the most distance on a human-powered vehicle. In 24 hours, he traveled 1,041 kilometers. This is averaging over 50 kilometers per hour in a 24-hour period. He later on went to break records in the same power events on the water, breaking the 24-hour distance record on a pedal-powered boat in 2008. In a 24-hour period, he pedaled 245 kilometers. Currently, Greg's spending a lot of his time and energy on Algo, an algorithmic trading program, which over the past 2 or 3 years has averaged his investors 58% return on investment. He's having a lot of fun with that. That's where he's spending his creative energy. So on today's podcast, I think you'll find this very interesting. Greg's, maybe most famous for being the dad of Cody Kolodziejzyk, who's YouTube famous. Enjoy this show. Links will be provided in the show notes. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, introducing my longtime friend, Greg Kolodziejzyk.
Well, folks, I am excited to speak with my longtime friend, my buddy in adventure, Mr. Greg Kolodziejzyk. Greg, welcome and thank you for being a guest on my podcast.
Hey, Bri.
Greg, we've known each other a long time now. Just as I was waiting to get on the call with you today, I was thinking back to when we met and where we met. And I actually did a Google search to see if I could actually figure out which year it was. So I searched the Calgary Police Half Marathon.
Oh, yeah.
And I was looking for results in, I think it was probably 2006, but it could have been 2005. And I was unsuccessful in finding the results when we were both there and we met.
Oh, really?
Out of Mount Royal University.
I kind of do remember. I think we were hanging around in the gym at Mount Royal College.
Yep.
Which is where the finish line was. And I think we just sort of bumped into each other there and started chatting down there, right? I do remember that. Yeah. That was a long time ago, dude.
We would have talked about the results, and we would have talked about, and what sort of connected us immediately was that we were both kind of excitedly training and preparing, and you had just had some great success with Ironman. And I think you told me that day, you got to get a power tap to learn to bike right.
Right. I said, you have to get I probably told you to get a watts meter for your bike for training, because I think I'd already been through the Ironman, maybe maybe I'd been to Hawaii by then.
I think you had, yeah.
You were doing Ironman Canada, and I think you wanted to try to qualify. And so I said, I can give you a couple of tips. And I think that's how I got onto that, because always my first thing is the watts meter, because that was kind of new back then, and people didn't really know what that was. And back in 2006, believe it or not, everybody knows what they are now. Well, almost everybody.
Greg, we have a lot of things that I'd like to talk to you about, and I'm not going to try and cover it all because, as you know, this is you don't know, but this is, I think, episode 8 of Calgary Living, Real Estate, and Lifestyle, and I'm not stopping until I get to at least 100 episodes. So we'll have time to revisit.
All right.
So where do we start? Let's just kind of free flow a little bit. Actually, I just did a little searching on you, on your footprint here in the Googling internet world. And what I learned is, and I didn't know, or I did know and forgot, that you were born in St. John. Is that St. John, British Columbia, and moved to Calgary when you were 5 years old?
Yeah, Fort St. John, BC.
Fort St. John.
I moved to Calgary when I was 5 years old. My dad was in the oil industry, and he got a job in Calgary, so we moved, and I've been in Calgary ever since.
But
that's a long time, really.
It is a long time.
Yeah, I mean, for people that typically, meet people in Calgary, very few people have been here for, 53 years?
Yeah.
Something? That's a long time.
Well, I mean, when I moved here in 2003, the population has doubled since that time. So you're exactly right.
Wow.
Interesting. And so let me ask, you moved here in 2000 when you were 5 or something. And were your parents from here originally, or were they from British Columbia always?
My father was from Alberta. My mother is from Quebec.
How did they meet?
I just don't even know.
You don't know things like that.
Well, no, I do. My dad. Okay. I know. My mother was a nun with the Catholic Church, and then she became a teacher, and she moved out to Alberta with a friend, and they ran into each other some social event. I'm not really sure, and that's up in Edmonton. And that's how they met, and then they got married. And he got a job in Fort St. John, BC, because at the time the oil industry was just exploding up there, like it has done since in different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they moved up there and had kids, and then we moved to Calgary.
Neat.
Been here ever since, yeah.
I didn't know that. My mother was a nun too.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
We have a lot of things in common.
I did not know that.
It's wild.
Did your mother hope that you would become a priest?
Yes, she did actually.
I think my mother was the same thing. She wanted me to be an altar boy, and I wouldn't have any of it.
Oh, I was an altar boy. Greg, what I find really, actually, first off, tell me a little bit about what you're doing right now. What's keeping you excited? What are you? I'm getting into Algo Lab. What's going on with you?
Okay. So I started a software company about, 4 years ago, probably even 5 years ago, when we started developing the technology for it. And what it is it's an automated algorithmic trading software program that's cloud-based. So essentially, just to explain it really quick, this software program plugs into your brokerage account, and then places trades in your account based on our proprietary algorithms that are built into the program. That's basically what it does. We've been running this software company for 3.5 years, or actually accepting customers, software customers, for about 3.5 years. We have done an average of about 58% average annualized returns for our customers. So really happy about the success of the program. The algorithms themselves, they work really well. And we're just transitioning now from a software company to an advisory firm. So we're actually authorized in the United States to manage accounts. And so we've kind of made this big switch from a software provider to an account advisor or account management, which is kind of exciting, actually. It's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
The software, the algorithm is still doing very well. Our clients are making money, and I'm pumped about it, actually, to tell you the truth. So, yeah, every morning I wake up and I'm just like, this is great.
That's really.
I can't wait to get to work, right? I mean, that's great, right? I mean, that's why you love what you do, right?
Absolutely. That's really interesting, and I want to probably circle back to how you happened to come here. In this, certainly the sort of the algorithmic trading and what you're up to there. Craig, what most strikes you about living in Calgary?
What do I like about living in Calgary?
Or what do you notice about living in Calgary? Or what strikes you about living in Calgary?
You know, we haven't really, we've always been just outside of the city limits since, I guess we moved out there in 1990. Mm-hmm. So we really haven't lived officially in the city. Although I've worked in the city, worked downtown, we lived outside the city. I've noticed definitely the roller coaster nature of the local economy. It really is it's isolated from the rest. We're kind of in our own little economic bubble here in Calgary. That's what makes Calgary very different from a lot of other cities in Canada and elsewhere, is that we do really have our own little bubbles up and down, like a roller coaster. And that's the one thing that strikes me about Calgary the most, I'd say, over the years, looking back, is just this constant up and down and being at odds with the rest of the economy at times, and at times being in sync with the rest of the economy, and at times being, way over the boom times. They're crazy here. And the bust times too. They're absolutely nuts. And we're kind of going through one of those right now, as you know.
Right. One of those not so nice times to be in Calgary. Bust times.
Hey, we've been there before,
Yeah, that's true. And so I understand how you come to live in this wonderful city. And what is it that you love about Calgary?
What I love about Calgary is the proximity to the mountains and Kananaskis and Banff, and I love that. I also love the fact that we've got a international airport here. It's great. A lot of flights go right through, start from Calgary, and you can go anywhere in the world, most big places with one flight, and that's awesome. Love that about Calgary. Love the proximity to the mountains. I love the atmosphere here. The endurance sport atmosphere is great in Calgary. That's what I really love. And I also kind of like the fact that Calgary isn't really big. Like, it's not like Toronto or Vancouver. Mm-hmm. You can still get around in 40 minutes anywhere in the city from anywhere. And you can get downtown. You can go to a restaurant downtown without dealing with parking issues and too much traffic and craziness. So I like that about Calgary, actually.
And what is it that you don't like about Calgary?
Well, probably that economic roller coaster is not a lot of fun. We can't, but there are actually some benefits to that, really. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're starting a business, that kind of thing, there are some advantages, and there have been advantages in the past for me. And that is when you're building a business, if you happen to be in that building phase while the local economy is not doing so well, you really do have access to all these skills and services and resources that you wouldn't normally have have access to readily. That makes growing a business very difficult at times when you can't find programmers, for example, or skilled people to hire. So that's really great. When you're building a business and the economy's not so great here, it actually works really well. Rent is low. You have access to people. I really actually like that about Calgary. If you can time that right, it works very well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And actually, one other guest in the podcast sort of said the same thing. In this kind of economy or time, it's time to bulk up on your vision and your staffing, those sorts of things.
You have to, I think, take advantage of it. The economy is pretty good. The economy is excellent in the US and pretty good elsewhere in Canada. So now is the time that you really want to put your foot down on the gas pedal right now with your business, because rent is cheap. You can expand. You can get lots of office space. You can get skilled people, technical and otherwise, in the city. They're generally available. It's a pretty good place to be right now, I think.
Tell me about your interest in real estate. You mentioned living sort of on the outside of the city. Tell me about some of your first real estate decisions.
Yeah, sure. When I was, probably 29 or 28, my company was, we were doing okay, had some cash, and I thought that I would just recently married too, and I thought this would be a good time to invest in real estate. So I bought, the A-frames in Coach Hill. They're on the edge of the city. They were made famous actually by a National Geographic article where they have these A-frame condos in a spread on an article about Calgary. And it was kind of famous because there was horses going down the street. At the time, this was right on the edge of the city. So you could just basically, out our window of our A-frame condo, you could see the mountains and there was nothing else. And so we bought one of those places. And I think it was like $92,000 all in. And this was right after that big real estate bubble that crashed.
So would this be, it could be early 90s? Do you remember? You're not good with those number dates.
Sure, this would have been late 80s actually.
Okay.
Yeah. We then sold that house and bought an acreage from a bank repo in Springbank. And we bought an acreage it was the same as the value of the home. It was like $90,000, $98,000 or something like that. And I basically, all the money that I had at the time, we put up maybe $100,000 structure on top of this $100,000 lot. So believe it or not, you've got a home in Springbank that we put together for probably a little under $200,000, which is unheard of these days. You can't do that. But back then, the economy wasn't great. The bank was trying to sell these lots off because of a project that failed, and this is Springbank. It's hard to imagine, but that once upon a time.
Then and you sold that A-frame kind of Signal Hill or Coach Hill property. Do you remember making money on that, or what happened with that? Did you sell it for more than you purchased it for?
No. It was sort of a rambling project that went on for decades really. We built the home that we could afford, and then later on, we loved the area so much that rather than moving, we renovated and we added square footage to the house. And then, fast forward another 10 years, I guess it was probably another 10 years, we, instead of moving, loved the area, loved our neighbors, we decided we'd renovate again, and we completely redecorated, remodeled the whole house. We're talking about tearing down the walls, everything, and completely new house. So the investment into that property at the end of the day was a lot more than we probably could, a lot more than we could sell it for. It's a very modern home, probably not everybody's taste. So again, you've got something very difficult to sell. I think at the end of the day, we probably broke even on the home all in, I guess. I'd say, yeah, probably.
Yeah, and I was really asking about your first house, the Coach Hill property, but I think that you kind of bought it and sold it for a similar price.
It was. We only had it for maybe a year.
Okay.
We probably made a little bit of money because markets had started to recover after the big real estate crash in the 80s, and so we made a little bit of money and took that and leveraged it toward the Springbank home.
Greg, I've always been really interested in you. You finished sort of school and kind of landed into graphic design. This is before things were digital. Maybe you just tell our listeners a little bit about that first business, and then you selling it quite a young man, and really choosing retirement. Tell us quickly about that business and roughly the year that it happened. Like, I'm talking, it was in the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was sold in 1994, actually. So, so I went to school. I went to SAIT, and I took engineering at SAIT. So 2-year diploma program, and then went to work for an oil company in town, and really just did not like it at all. I kind of thought that all along that I should have gone to Alberta College of Art or something like that, because I was, I really missed the creative aspect of what I was doing as a engineering technologist, I guess. And so I probably didn't even work for a year and quit. and went off on my own as a freelance graphic designer and proceeded to starve to death pretty much for the next, I don't know how many years. But a friend of mine, or my cousin actually, contacted me one day and said, hey, he worked for a computer store in Edmonton, an Apple computer store. And so this was back in the days of the Apple II, and the Mac had just come out. And he said, hey, Apple Computer has this new printer, and it's 300 dots per inch resolution, which was, compared to the 72 DPI dot matrix printer, that was like close to typesetting. And he said, Greg, I think this could really help your business. And so I asked my dad if he would co-sign a loan, and I bought one of these printers. $10,000 was the printer, and a Macintosh 512K, 10 grand. So we got a loan, and I bought this thing, and I started using it for my business. And I thought, this is going to completely revolutionize my whole business, because you could do everything on the computer and print it out. And I knew, that the quality wasn't quite there yet, but it would just be a matter of time before it would get better. And so we thought, okay, well, I'm going to switch, pivot, and get into producing content software for this new market. So I started a company. We developed digital typefaces and clip art, and we were the first company actually to get into the digital stock photography. That started in Calgary. That entire stock photography industry really started in Calgary with me at Image Club back in the early 90s. And the company just exploded. We grew like crazy, and then were acquired in 1994 by Adobe Systems. And and that's, fast forward to what you were getting at with your question.
Right.
At that point, it's either keep going in business. I was a little bit burnt out, and I thought I would just take some time, a few years, and work on my health for one thing, and get into something that I really wanted to do, and that is sports. I wanted to run. I wanted to get into endurance sports. I love riding my bike, and that's kind of where all that started. I signed up to do Olympic distance triathlon with my brother-in-law Tom, and we Lake Chaparral actually is what it was, and we did that. And I loved it so much. I went and signed up for Ironman Florida right after that, and then hired a coach online, and trained and did Ironman Florida, and then that was it. 12 Ironmans later.
Exactly. I think 13 actually, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. That might be right.
So what I found really interesting about you, now and when we first met and continuously, is so Image Club was sold to Adobe, and then sort of out of that, the staff that you had turned into iStock, I think. There's a few renditions, and there was quite a bit of a sort of success in the tech industry here in Calgary, I think, from digital imaging. I think I have that story more or less right, yeah. But what's interesting to me is your choice to take some time off. I think when you sold Image Club, I think you were already firmly into weightlifting, and I think you were a big strapping fellow of 200 pounds. Yeah. I've seen some photos. And then you went sort of the other direction into endurance, and are often around at this time, I think 160 pounds. So, but what I found really fascinating is your choice. I would say 15-ish, 20 years of breaking world records and doing a long distance kind of mostly pedaling or cycling type events. That's been kind of fascinating for me as with my interest in sort of adventure and adventure sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I how did I get into that? So I think when I started training for Ironman and doing these Ironman races, and of course your bike split is really important, right? And I discovered really quickly, as you did, as every Ironman triathlete learns really quickly, is that aerodynamics is really important. I mean, your aero position, your bike, everything, the tubing shape, all that stuff. And I just got really interested in that. I thought, and I just kind of went, how far can you go with the aerodynamic design of your bike if there weren't any rules? What could you do and what could you accomplish? And then I discovered the entire world of human-powered vehicles, which are these there's like these crazy recumbent bikes inside these capsule fairing shells that look like bullets or missiles, and they're completely aerodynamic, you know, and so I really was fascinated with that. And so I thought I was going to build one of these and see if I just, you know, play around with it. And then I discovered there was a record that I might be able to go after. And it was the 24-hour human powered distance record. So that's basically how much distance can you cover in 24 hours using your own power. So no motors, no assistance of any kind is allowed. So you're not even allowed wind assistance. You've got to do your attempt on a circular track to negate the effect of wind. Has to be flat and just to be timed. Somebody has to count your laps, and you have to survey the course. So I did this, and I actually took 3 attempts before I actually broke the record. I say we broke the record really, because there was a big team involved in it. You know, my wife, family, I had people helping. It was an awesome experience. So yeah, I broke the record, 1,074 kilometers in 24 hours. So that my average was over 50 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
And this is just on a bike for 24 hours. So that doesn't, I'm not talking about my physical abilities here. I'm talking about that's what you can get with aerodynamics done properly without any rules. I mean, with the sky's the limit. You could do whatever you want as long as you're not using a motor or a sail, you know, basically. I found that amazing. Like I just was like, this is really cool.
That's, to me, it's such a interesting story, and sort of going back to, you know, you studying engineering at SAIT to going into graphic design, and then choosing, like, you know, seeing these fast vehicles, these human powered vehicles, and then studying, like, it's your interested creative side of your brain mixed with your analytical side of your brain that you know, you just study things and then you have success. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. There's sort of that creative side mixed in with the numbers and the yeah.
You talk about like left brain and right brain hemisphere, folks. I don't know. Somehow you have this crazy mix, which I would like to bring up as I think about your offspring. You know, 2 wonderful kids, but this guy by the name of Cody Ko is a fascinating fellow as well. Studied computer science at Duke University and is now like incredibly famous on YouTube. I find that did you ever think of that this is going to be Cody's life, what he's up to right now?
Yeah, I did.
Really?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Like that's so fascinating how he's so he kind of has the analytical side as well. Like, would you say that he's like similar to you in that analytical ability to, you know, dissect things, and then the creative side to make people laugh, basically?
Yeah, exactly. I think he's a lot like me that way. He's very analytical and methodical about his process, and he has, I think, he has a similar work ethic. I mean, you know me. I just work all the time. When we're not working, we're traveling, and
right.
And that's one thing. But when we're not traveling and I'm home, I'm working all the time, and he is working all the time. I mean, the persona that he gives off, you know, you wouldn't think that. You'd think he's just a goof off and he just fools around all the time, laughing and joking with his friends, right? And making these videos. But that's not the case at all. Even when he's home visiting, like he's buried downstairs in his bedroom and he's working like on his computer, editing and doing whatever. Like his life is crazy now, and he's working all the time. You know, within reason. He's still young. You know, he's still, but yeah, he works really hard. I think that is one of the reasons. I think I can attribute that personality trait of his to his success.
Wow.
His work ethic, for sure.
It's fascinating to me and to my own little microcosm. I was out running less than 10 days ago, witnessed as I was just taking a video of the beautiful nature, and turned to my left, and there was, you know, what seemingly on video looks like an avalanche barreling towards me. And so I shared it with you, and you were the folks who suggested, hey, Brian, post that to YouTube. Let's see if we can make it go viral. And it went viral, and I've been enjoying a bit of famousness for the last 10 days. Like,
you're
really
famous too, you and Cody.
Oh yeah, exactly. So in my like overwhelming fame of past week, actually it's already over. It's like done like 4 days ago. I had 40,000 views on my YouTube video, and like I was very excited, thrilled. People around me were thrilled for me. And so meanwhile, Shirley and I were watching on Wednesday. We're watching it. He posted it on Monday with 2 million views.
Yeah.
It puts into perspective.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I know.
Fame and viral videos.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's really fascinating. So,
in life, there's a constant reminder that it doesn't matter how good you are at something, there's always somebody friggin' better than you.
Absolutely.
Like right around the corner. So
yeah.
that's what life is about sometimes, is that reminder all the time. So
exactly. Why or why not are you staying in Calgary?
Well, our family, we've got family here. Both Helen and I, our fathers are still here, and brothers, sisters, Helen's sister. Yeah, we've got family here. So that's the reason number one. We do spend a lot of time down in Montana. We've got a home down there too. So we're kind of split between the two places. For all the reasons that we talked about earlier, I like the size of the city. I actually don't mind the fact that the economy sometimes does get the way it is right now, and I can use that to my advantage, and I kind of like that. Like the fact that we're only 20 minutes from downtown, and we really are in the country. Like I'm looking out my window right now, and I'm looking at the mountains, and nothing but a ranch across the street. That's great. You can't do that in Toronto. Can't do that in Vancouver. I love that about Calgary. So we're going to stay.
When we met, like actually not when we met, but a few years after we met, I would guess like coming to sort of 2008, 2009, like I was that age, or I felt I was that age where it's like, oh, I kind of know how to type on a computer. I kind of know how to work a computer. Am I already too old to bother with this? And I think you introduced me maybe to Facebook about that time, maybe Twitter, or maybe probably Instagram was coming soon. And you talked to me about, you may as well get good at this. You may as well have fun with it and enjoy it. So as opposed to like sort of shutting myself down from that opportunity to, maybe be social on social media, which was certainly something that I considered, doing. I decided to sort of jump in, and I kind of consider myself, and others might as well, as at this point, kind of an early adopter on those sorts of things. Can you give me your sort of thoughts? Like, why did you bother being social? Or, I mean, you were a bit of an inspiration to me in the way that you shared on social. And you want to tell me a little bit about your experience around social media?
Yeah, I was kind of introduced to it in the same way that you were. Really, you kind of get to the point and stage in your life. Some people do, anyways, and you and I both were there, where you're kind of like, well, I don't need this new stuff is for kids. I don't need to devote some percentage of my time trying to learn something new. This is their thing, and I'll let them have it. And then somebody showed me Facebook, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, but it's kind of dumb. I don't really get it, and I don't want to get it, really. And he kind of explained to me, said, look, this is where the future's going. Everybody's going to start using this. Sometime at some point, these kids are going to be 25 years old. They're going to be using it. They're going to be the people that you're going to be hiring. They're going to be your customers. They're going to be in your social network at some point later on. You might as well embrace this right now, because you've got to participate in this whole thing. Don't be, he kind of said something like, don't be like your parents. I just always use this as an example. You remember back when we were kids, and we had our things, rock and roll, long hair, bell-bottom jeans, whatever, jeans, even jeans, right? And this was very strange to our parents. They weren't willing to adapt or to accept this. change and see it, and they rebelled against it. Well, we rebelled against them, but I mean, and I think it's not a good thing to do that. You got to stay open to how things are changing, and that it's everybody younger than you, I guess, that's driving that. So that's kind of why I started it, to embrace it, and got into it full bore, and still am to this day. I try to stay on top of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Nice. What are you currently training for? What are you excited about?
Oh, well, you and I are going to do the race to Alaska. Maybe you forgot. I don't know.
No, I didn't forget, but our listeners will be curious.
So Brian and I decided to enter the race to Alaska. So this is a race that starts in Port Townsend, Washington, and ends in Ketchikan, Alaska. It's a boat race. There's only 2 rules. One is that you can't have any outside assistance, it has to be completely self-supported. And the other is that you can't have a motor. So we're going to do it on a boat that I had built for my wife, Helen, and I to do the MR340 race. This was a few years ago in Missouri. So this race is the longest nonstop kayak or rowboat or whatever race in the world. And it's basically down the Missouri River, 340 miles from Kansas City to St. Louis. So we built this pedal-powered tandem boat for that race. We entered that race. We won our category in the race. And I think we did something like 47 hours nonstop to finish the race. And ever since we built the boat, I've always had the race to Alaska in the back of my mind. And you and I have talked about it for many years. And, we just decided this would be the year for us to go ahead and try to do it. So that's the big thing that we've got planned in June, if they'll accept our boat. So yeah, that's the hitch.
Okay. Well, we're kind of going through the process now of getting accepted. So we'll see where that brings us.
We'll see where that brings us. Well, we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, we're going to see.
And we have to do that race to Alaska. It may or may not be in 2020, but I think this decade.
I think that it may end up turning out to, I think you're right. It may end up turning out to be maybe a couple year project where we do what we can this year to prove that boat is seaworthy. Maybe that's our objective for this year. Mm-hmm. And maybe we have one kind of preliminary goal or whatever you call it, one stage that we want to do. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's another race or something like that in the meantime to get us ready for it. I don't know.
Cool.
We talk about that, I guess.
Yeah, it's fun. Any adventure is fun. So, but don't you think it's a little immature of you? Like, shouldn't you be more grown up and like just work?
Yes.
Like why do you want to do this at this point? Like,
I have a sort of a motto, and that is I have to do something that scares the piss out of me at least once a year.
Oh, nice.
That race scares the living daylights out of me, to be honest with you.
Very
good. I like to do something once a year that is scary.
So recently, on that note, I turned 53 in the past few weeks, and I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do like towards my 53rd birthday to be scared? And so I said, I'll jump off the top tower at the Repsol Center, and Talisman Center. And so I went the day and I climbed up the first thing and I jumped. And then I thought, that wasn't so bad. So then I went up the second one and I jumped, but I noticed that there was and I was fine, but it was a little nerve-wracking. But then I noticed that there was a barrier over the third tower, there's 4 towers, and it said permanently closed. And so I asked the lifeguard, sort of happily, why is it permanently closed? And she said that there's been more kind of spinal compressions and issues at that center, at the Repsol Center, than any other facility in Canada. And they were the only facility left that was allowing the public to jump off the 3rd and 4th towers. And that's been shut down.
Oh, wow. So you didn't get a chance to jump off the 10-meter tower.
No, I did not.
Oh, I've never done it. I couldn't do it.
Really? You've never done it?
No. And Cody was a diver. That was his sport. He was, he was a diver, and no, I couldn't do it.
Wow, and you've spent a lot of time at the pool. I'm surprised to hear that you haven't done that. The brave fellow you are.
No, not scared to death.
So, Greg, I'm going to sort of get to the end of this podcast. I have a couple other questions, and we definitely have to have a repeat, probably in our, maybe our late 20s or early 30s of, I'm talking episode 20s or 30s for Calgary Living Real Estate Lifestyle. Tell me, Greg, two questions. What advice would you give your younger self?
What advice would I give my younger self?
You've pretty much just done everything you wanted to do. Maybe you just don't have any advice for your younger self.
No,
Your brain doesn't really go there, I think.
Not really. Yeah, I think if you did, I think that you, if you were the type of person to have regrets, then maybe you would think that way. Like, oh, I wish I had done it differently. And that's the advice that I'd give myself. But I honestly don't think that I wish I'd done anything differently, just because even the bad things in life, there's still experiences and learning. And, it's like yin and yang. You need both sides of that coin. You need the good with the bad. You don't really know what the good is. You can't appreciate the good without that offsetting bad to
right.
compare it to. And so I kind of really wouldn't change anything. And if I wouldn't change anything, then I really can't give myself any, so I'd say no. I'm happy with how things went. I just let it go.
Excellent. No,
flip a coin.
Great. So last question, and I'm thinking maybe we'll even have a similar response, but what profession other than your own, not that I guess you've had a profession, I don't know, would you just call it entrepreneur, but what profession other than your own would you like to have attempted?
Something that I didn't do.
Is there a profession that, you travel a lot, you meet all kinds of interesting people. Is there professions that you thought were interesting that you would have thought, hey, if I hadn't done this, I might have done that? Has that ever happened to you?
Well, I often wonder what would have happened if I had pursued, the creative side when I went to school, after high school. If I'd have gone to ACA, for example, and I think I wanted to do that. And I think my parents said, no, I think you should get into something, you get a job in the oil industry, take, engineering or something like that. And I did. I think it was mostly because that's what they expected of me. But this is where it got me. I think, that definitely is part of who I am, for sure. But I often wondered what would have happened if I had gone that route and went in the creative route and went into advertising, which is, something I probably would have done if not for that. And I don't know where I would be now. So, kind of bizarre.
On that note, I've been into a lot of homes, of course. And one of the many things, Greg, I found interesting about you is you decide, okay, I'm going to, make this home, and I'm going to design all the art and get it and make it and frame it and make it beautiful. And you've done that in a couple of different formats I've seen, at least. Once with the paintings that you were doing, and then the photography that you got into, like really it's probably almost 10 years ago that you really sort of invested heavily into beautiful photography, prints, which I always found very interesting. How come I don't see you more with the camera these days? How come you're not?
Yeah, it's all about, honestly, it's all about what is the creative outlet? What is your creative outlet?
Yeah.
And I always have to have some creative outlet. Right now, these days, my creativity completely goes toward my company. Designing and writing software and code. It's actually very creative and where I focus on these days. That's kind of why I've given up the photography.
Will you get back to the photography, or will you become a painter? Is that being a painter in your horizon, or more graphic? What do we see from you next, do you think? You don't know.
No, I don't know.
How can our listeners reach out to you, be in touch, learn more about your current project, Algo Lab?
You can visit www.thealgolab.com for more information about the software program.
Are you on Instagram? I think you are. Can they reach out to you there?
Yes, they can reach out to me on Instagram. I think it's just my name. I don't even know what my Instagram is.
We'll
Kolodziejzyk, I think.
We'll include it in the show notes, Greg. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, that just about wraps up today's podcast. I want to thank you for tuning in. It's time for me to head down into my basement and hop on my M5 recumbent bike board from Greg so that we can train and pedal to Alaska. So folks, if you have questions, suggestions on who should be on this podcast, reach out to me. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by me, Calgary Real Estate by the Howard team. So if you know somebody who could use my help, has questions on Calgary real estate, or needs to sell or buy a property, reach out to me. It's Brian Howard. You can find all the contact information in the show notes. I wish you and your family the very best.